Today, I want to talk about religion. Now, a little background for me, I was raised a Roman Catholic. My parents were very involved in the Catholic Church they brought us to, and we went literally every Sunday or the Saturday night before because they have services as early as 4 p.m. For those of you who may have grown up Protestant or non religious, Catholic churches, they offer services that count for the obligation as early as 4 p.m. on Saturday. Oh, really? I mean, it's very useful if you have something you want to do on the actual Sunday, whether it's going to a football game or something like that. Personally, it never really made sense to me because it's not technically Sunday. It's not technically the Sabbath. Well, from a Jewish perspective, it's the Sabbath. But a priest that I talked to actually said that the reason that they do it is because it comes from the Jewish perception that sundown is the start of a new day. So I guess since Christianity did come from Judaism, I say that because the Old Testament is literally the Torah. So the Bible is basically the Torah plus the New Testament. I guess that's where the line of reasoning came from. Obviously, Protestants don't see it that way. Or if they do, I haven't heard of it because I have a friend who's a Protestant, and he said that his church has never offered Saturday Mass. Well, church services. I think Mass is different from church services. It's the same religion, different category of it. So, yeah, in my childhood, I would have to go every single Sunday, and I'd also have to go to, what was it, Sunday school? It was called something else for the Catholic version because it was the religious education you did until you were 16 and did your confirmation. Unless you already went to Catholic school during the week, so that would count towards that, I guess. Though you'd still have to do, I'm going to guess you still have to actually do the schooling until you turn 18 and graduate the same age as everyone else. Anyway, I did that. I had my first communion at the age of 8. But as I got older, I was a lot less enthusiastic about going to church and the religious education. I guess it was mostly the principle of I didn't choose to be here. I shouldn't have to do this if I don't want to. I tried weaseling out of it, but my parents wouldn't budge. They are quite religious. Not to the point that they're shaming anyone like my cousins who have lived together with partners before getting married, but they are very dedicated to the Catholic Church. Yeah, me personally, by middle school, I was kind of mentally checked out from it because I guess I was trying to be an edge lord of some kind. And there was also the principle of not wanting to do it because I was forced to. And like Bill Burr said in his bit about Scientology, I'll admit I didn't like going to church on Sundays. Yeah, I'll admit I kind of gave them a hard time with the lead up to my confirmation. It was the first example of something where I refused to have a party in my name for it because I didn't want to celebrate it because I didn't see anything to celebrate about it. Well, I guess I could have celebrated the fact that I didn't have to attend Sunday school or religious education classes, which in middle and high school were held on Wednesday nights. I guess there was that. And I also hated the formal clothes. I actually went as unformal as possible for what I had to wear to it. And I literally wore my normal clothes underneath it just so that I could take off the outer layer as soon as I stepped outside of the church. Now, I still played ball to some extent by actually going to church in the first place. And sometime after my confirmation, I had less of an objection to it. And I saw value in the Ten Commandments and such, but I guess the organization didn't really click with me like it clicked for my parents. Maybe it's a generational thing because I'm more influenced by online culture compared to my parents who are Gen Xers who grew up without the internet. So for the next 6 years after I or my confirmation, I would go to church despite not really feeling like I was getting anything out of it. By the time I was 16, maybe when I was 15 or before that, at some point, I just started zoning out during the sermons and I'd actually use my imagination to imagine things. My sister was much more rebellious by hiding earbuds under her hair, which were eventually caught by my parents. I was not bold enough to do that, nor did I have any way to easily conceal it like my sister did, so I just used my head to escape into my imagination. I'd use it to make plans for what I was going to do next or for figuring out my budgets and such. So, yeah, I guess you could say it was kind of a meditative experience, just in a different way. I just had to remember to return to the present get to get first communion and such. Yeah, after my confirmation, I still cared for it. I didn't really like when they joined with two other parishes to share a priest because I think a lot of Catholic churches started doing that because of a shortage of them. Fewer people are willing to do that. Partially, I think it's a mix of the PDF file scandals from the early 2000s, as well as a materialistic consumerist culture that wouldn't really, of people who really wouldn't want to do that. Kind of like what I've heard about blue collar labor and the trades and such. Not enough people are wanting to go into those because we culturally glorify influencers and other things. And I say this as someone who's, I wouldn't say I'm particularly trying to be an influencer. I'm just putting my thoughts out there. Though if you are influenced by them, I am happy to make an impact in a positive way where possible. But anyway, I continued going to church all throughout college. I guess possibly deep down is trying to rebel against atheism now because back in high school I was trying to rebel against religion by questioning things and such. But when I was in college, I kind of wanted to rebel against the more secular things I've heard. Yeah, the last time I went to a church service that was just a regular one and not a funeral or, yeah, since then the only other ones I went to were funerals, was on Sunday, March 10th, 2019. It was in that it was during that sermon that I realized I wasn't really paying attention to what the priest was saying. I was still using my brain to deduce what to do next. So over the years, I'd chosen to go on my own so that I could control the timing. Because up until I got my driver's license in my own car, I had to either go when my parents went or walk all the way over there. When I was 18, I would actually walk over there early on Sundays because I wanted to get it out of the way first thing in the morning at the first service for the day and then be free for the rest of the day. And I was also frustrated when they started bringing in music into the services. I never really cared for it, I guess because I grew up when they weren't doing it there. So that's another reason I gave up on going to a church after March of 2019. I realized I was just taking up space from someone who would actually want to be there. Because I remember overhearing the priest talk to a brother and sister who were a couple of years younger than me who actually took Lyft to get there because it meant something to them. By then, it was just an old habit from when I was younger that I was free to kick as early as 18, but I just chose to keep coming back. And when I realized I wasn't really getting anything out of it, kind of like when I quit watching football, I decided to just stop. Give up that seat to someone who actually wants to be there. I was involved in literally nothing else there. And quite frankly, I was not a big fan of the organized events for that because, like, they'd have Red Sox games, they would organize a trip for, which I personally wouldn't have done because there would have been limits on it and such. I mean, if you want to do that, more power to you. But me personally, if I were to go to a Red Sox game, I'd rather buy my own ticket and do things on my own terms. To this day, about 6 years after the last time I've been to church, I went to, I think the only real Catholic service I've been to was the one funeral I went to last October. The funeral I went to before that was a Protestant one. And then the last funeral before that was in 2018 during my weekly outing to church, or as I called it, my thinking time while the priest talked at the sermon. And yeah, personally, I still believe that there's a creator. I just think it's more like the Kree Supreme Intelligence from Captain Marvel, where instead of being whatever it manifests as, honestly, I think that all religions have the same creator and it just appeared to you as uh, to people as whoever they admired most, the same way the Kree Supreme Intelligence from that movie appeared as whoever you admired most. In the case of Carol Danvers, it was Wendy Lawson, the gender swapped version of Walter Lawson from the comics. Little fun fact for all of you out there who saw the movie but didn't know that. Yeah, I still believe in that. But honestly, I don't get anything out of going to an actual church. I just end up taking up space like I did in college and taking away a seat from someone who actually wants to be there and listen to the sermon. I'll admit I did tune in for the sermon mentally. The only reason I kept going after 2015 when I turned 18 and was legally an adult was because at first it was because I felt like I had to keep living with and my parents, like as a condition of living with them after turning 18 and technically being able to be kicked out at any time. But over the years, I realized that wasn't going to happen. And then 2019, I was like, yeah, I don't need to do this anymore. And then I eventually just stopped going. And I won't say that the 1 hour of extra time I get per week makes all that difference because that was actually one of the things that my religious education teacher for my final year of that brought up, that it's only an hour of your week in the grand scheme of things. When I complained about the whole thing, of course you add in the religious education, that's 2 hours per week, so that's twice as much when you're younger. But I digress. He had a point about that. I guess don't want I don't think children should be forced to do anything like that with religious education and such. I think if they truly want to be there, they'll make an indication of it. as an adult looking back on it, I think I'd rather children be given the choice to do that. If they get something out of it, cool. They should go and worship. But if they don't want to, I guess I feel like they shouldn't be forced into that. That's just something I wanted to talk about. So I think on that note, I'm going to leave it here. Comment down below your religious beliefs if you feel comfortable talking about that, or if you had a similar experience to mine, or what your experience with religion is. If, again, only if you're comfortable with it. I know it's one of those things that you're told not to talk about regularly. And, the whole don't talk politics or religion thing, but it's something that was on my mind that I wanted to get out there because I'm nearing 6 years since I last went to a church service that was not a funeral. Give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos, and I'll see you soon.